All right, welcome back. Part 2, part 1 of this tutorial. We got some sprite animation. We have basically up, down, left, right movements, and we have, yeah, that's basically it. We talked about importing sprite sheets and using the editor efficiently there. One thing that I want to start with here is changing. You can see that Link main character, when we stop, we want his animation to stop. So there's a couple different ways to do that. One kind of nice way to do that is to actually just switch the image speed. So if we actually go to, let's go back to objects, go to link. When we're not pressing a key right now, it is just, stopped. What we want to do, and I'm going to bring this over here, we're going to talk about the documentation as well. We can use something called image index. Image index is the current sub-image being shown for the instance sprite. So in this case, if we have an object, or if we have a sprite with multiple costumes or sub-images, we can set the sub-image to a certain, like the first one of the series or the last one in the series. We can also alter the image speed. The image speed would directly change how fast the images are rotating through, the different costumes. Basically, how fast it's being animated. One way we can do this is just to set the image speed to 0 when it's not moving, so the costumes just stop changing, and then also to change the image index back to 1 or 0, the first image that we have. So now we're talking about changing some actual code. So remember, GameMaker uses GML, which is GameMaker language, and I'm not even sure if there is like a little drag and drop button to do some of those things. But what we can do is start writing some of our own code in here. So if you go to, let's say, control, and you just look at this little menu code, you can put in your own script. Basically allow you to type in code, and then it will run that code. So you can just basically pop this in here, and it says execute a piece of code. Basically it brings up an editor, and we can write whatever we want to do in there. So we can just start writing our code. So the first thing that I want to do here is I want to make the image speed. Image speed is a local variable of all sprites. It's built in, and so that was in the documentation. I'll come back to that documentation, but I'm going to say image underscore speed, and actually when you start typing it in, it even brings it up. Look, we have image speed. It's so we're gonna have image speed, and we're gonna say that is now equal to 0. We're gonna set it equal to 0, and then remember, we can use something called the image index built in, local variable there, and we can set that as well. So we can say image underscore index, and we're going to say that equals 0 as well. I'm pretty sure that if we set it to 0, that will actually be the first costume in the series. It probably starts at 0 and goes 1, 2, 3, 4. We could certainly look at the documentation, and if you're ever in doubt of something, you can always Google it. There's a lot of documentation and examples of problems that you're having. So we're going to run this code. I'm going to say OK, and now it's just sitting here. So when I let go of a key, it's going to stop moving, and it's going to execute this code. Basically, it's going to switch those variables to image speed is 0, image index is 0, and hopefully that makes a difference. Now, we could have also just actually used these variables as well here, because that's all we really did was just reassign 2 variables. We could have used this and typed in our own variables, but I wanted to start to show you how you can just simply put in a little executed piece of code here, because then you can write anything you want, and you can fully utilize the code or the language of GameMaker language, or GML. So let's test that. We're going to say, okay, hopefully this works. We always want to test it frequently to make sure the changes that we make are working correctly. So I'm going to the right, and I stop. And you can see that it kind of goes back to the first costume, and then it stops animating. I go left, it starts animating again, and it stops in its tracks. I go down, I go up, and that's kind of the behavior that we wanted, so that when we stop, it just looks like the animation stops kind of naturally here. So that kind of fixed that issue. All right. So just to bring up the documentation, the GameMaker language documentation, if you go to, and a lot of the times I just will Google an issue, and it's going to take me to the documentation for GameMaker. You can also go to docs.yoyogames.com, and if I just get rid of this, it will bring me to kind of the official documentation, kind of how-to guides. It'll tell me lots of different things that I can search. And I would recommend kind of getting used to and looking up documentation in GameMaker Studio, because you can find all your answers basically in here. So you can explore it, you can search for specific issues, basically you can learn a lot within here, right? I'll put a link on Canvas to this, but I think we're at a point now where you should start exploring some of this stuff on your own. All right, so kind of going back here, let's see what we can add next. So we're going to add some sort of enemy in our world. We're going to add a dragon. So we'll get more practice with importing and animating as well. So what I want you to do is create a new sprite. And this time we're going to name this, let's see, SPR, and we'll say dragon. Let's say dragon, let's start with a left. So dragon left. And we're going to edit the sprite, and we're going to create from a file, or sorry, create from a strip. So we're going to go back to some of those sprite sheets that you downloaded. And if we go to, let's see, where was it? The dragon. Flying dragon red. I think that's probably it. And here's our sprite sheet here, some basic positions. And so let's facing to the left. Let's grab these 3 images down here. So again, you can practice that. I'm going to go through it, but you should pretty much know how to do this by now. So say we want 3 images. I'm going to say 3 images, 3 rows. You know, we want to extract those. So maybe let's go with 70 as a height. We'll say image width is 150. And it looks like we're going to have to make the height a little bit more to get the wings on the top here. So let's make this 100 as a height. And let's make this 140. And now we're getting closer maybe to what we need. Grab those 3 things there. So there's 3. I'm going to say OK. It's going to add them. It's already transparent, which is great. I don't need to erase any background, and I want to crop this. So Control P is the easiest way is to crop the images or to trim the images, same thing. And we say OK. We can show a preview there, which looks kind of spastic because it's so fast. But if we maybe make it 10, maybe make it 5, more like 8 would be more normal, and we have something decent. So there is dragon left. So we're going to say OK on that. I would advise making this, changing this to center right here, and then saying OK. So we got a dragon left. Let's make a dragon right as well. Now dragon right, again, just like we did Link, we can pretty much duplicate that sprite. So we're going to right click this and hit duplicate, and we'll just switch the name of this to SPR dragon right, and then we can just hit edit, and we can just do a transformation. We can just go images, or sorry, transform, and we can mirror or flip this to the right, and we're going to have it. So there's to the right. So we're going to say OK on that. Now let's check what else we have. Do we have a dragon up and a dragon down? I'm not even sure on that, so let me just see if we have that on the sprite sheet. Dragon, SPR, dragon up. Let's add from a strip. And yeah, I guess we kind of have an up, or kind of like a top view, we could think of it as. And we have one that's kind of coming right at us as well. So why don't we go ahead and do that. Let's count this up right here as the first row. And let's grab these 3 images. So let's go with another 150 height, make it, I don't remember how much we need here. Just got to fit it in there. It's kind of a tight squeeze here. Let's make the width 145. That looks a little bit better. And let's make the height 115. And we'll say OK. And I think we got everything in there. We're going to crop this, trim it. And so now we have this. I think that is good enough for our purposes. So we'll say that is dragon up. We're going to center this by clicking on center and then saying OK. And let's go ahead and make one that is down as well. Now we can't really reflect this. This doesn't really make sense to reflect it down. Of course, if you did this, and let's say we did do this, right? We edit and we just rotate it down, or sorry, flip it vertically. You know what? Take that back. We could have it go like this. Kind of would work if we mirrored all these images to make it go. So you could do that, right? That kind of does work because it is kind of a top-down view. I'm going to keep it like this, and I'm going to add the other one, dragon up, to this. So let's go ahead, create one more sprite, SPR dragon up, edit the sprite, add from strip, or sorry, create from strip, I should have said. I don't think it matters. And then we can do, this one right here where it's coming at us. And if it doesn't look that good, we can always switch it back. So let's grab these. Three images, say OK. We're going to crop this. And that looks a little bit straight. It doesn't look quite centered. It kind of moves left and right, which might be okay. But we can alter that a little bit if we want. You can, by the way, if you go in here and edit it individually, so let's say we click on one of these things, we can shift it. So like, for example, this right here, we could move each individual image a little bit, horizontally or vertically, however we want to. So let's say I took this and moved it a little bit to the right, said OK. Does that look better? I don't think it looks better. Don't think it looks better. So, you could fiddle with this if you want. I'm just going to leave it because I'm not trying to go for absolute perfection here. I'm just going to call it good and say this is dragon. We're going to say down. And we're going to center it. And we're going to say OK. And so now we have this. And so now we kind of got an enemy, right? And we want that enemy to, you know, kind of start showing up in our woods, I guess, or in our world. And we will just try to defeat the enemy. And so let's come up with a scheme here where we can defeat the enemy. Let's go ahead and add some more stuff. You know, first of all, we're going to need a dragon object. So we made the sprites, but we haven't made the object yet. So let's create an actual object for the dragon. And let's say obj dragon. And inside of that, let's do a couple things here. So let's make a create event. So on creation, what do we want to do here? So first of all, we might want the dragon to have a health, right? So we could create a local variable to this object, and we can maybe call it dragon health. We could do that with a script, the code, or again, we could just go to this variable thing and just hit set variable. I'm going to go ahead and do that because I know that eventually we're going to have this set up. So I'm going to make a variable for these dragons, and I'm going to call it dragon health, and I'm going to set it to something like 5. And then when the dragon comes into the world, right, the dragon can start maybe moving. So let's have the dragon move in a random position. So I'm just going to select like anywhere here. Okay, even like just stationary. And we'll make the speed, let's make the speed maybe 5. Try that. And we kind of want to maybe randomize these dragons and how they are put into the world. So let's say that when we create a dragon, we put one into the world. There is something that we haven't, let's see, in this jump menu right here, there's something like this button right here is, let's see what this one is actually. That's jump to start. We don't want to do that. So I'm going to get rid of that. The one over to the right is like jump to a random position. So you could use that to your advantage as well. So I'm going to try this. I'm going to take this, put it in there, and it's going to jump to a random spot. It's basically going to change its X and Y coordinates and kind of randomize a spot on the map and just place it there. So let's see what that does. I'm going to say OK on that. And we'll come back to dragon, but let's call that, ooh, I forgot. We should, of course, add the sprite for a dragon, right, when it's created. So maybe let's say dragon, we'll just say dragon right as kind of a default. And let's say OK. We'll come back to dragon, but let's leave it there. Now remember, we do have one room here, which is kind of, we called it Hyrule main, kind of the main level here. And let's make a controller for that room, because we need a controller to start doing some other things. So create a new object. Let's call this one object. I guess, let's say Hyrule main controller. Does not have a sprite, but let's create a step event. Inside that step event, let's kind of do what we did with the last tutorial. Let's kind of randomize a chance for us to create a dragon, and let's put it into existence. So we're going to say go back to that control menu, and we're going to use the dice. We're going to test something here. We're going to say 1 out of every 50 will go. And this is good habit right here, but just putting start and end blocks if you're using the blocks here. And let's go ahead and create an instance of a dragon, since we have a dragon. So let's start here. So we're going to go ahead, create an instance, put it right here. and we're going to say create a dragon object. And now we could, you can see that it gives us spots to put the X and Y coordinate. We could randomize this right here. We could probably look in the GameMaker language and figure out how do I call a function or procedure that would return a random integer here. I'm just going to leave this as 0, 0. You don't even need to, relative doesn't really matter here, because right away, remember what we did is when the dragon is created, it instantly kind of spawns itself to a random location. So we chose to do it in the dragon instead of right here. So we're going to say OK on this. And that will get something going. So let's say OK. Let's go to rooms and let's add that object. So I'm going to go with objects controller, and you can go ahead and add the controller somewhere. I just added it to the top right there. Say OK, and let's test our code and see if we have an enemy object. We have a dragon starting to form in here. Whoa, we do. We have quite a bunch of dragons. First of all, that the speed of these dragons are quite fast, right? There's also a lot of them, and they're all facing to the right. We probably want to fix that. And what else is going on? The dragons are going outside of the room, and they just sort of disappear, right? So we want to try to fix a lot of these issues. So let's kind of take it one step at a time. The first thing I want to do is slow down that animation. Remember, when we did the first one, we added more images or more costumes to the sprite to just generically slow it down. We also learned how to change the image speed or the animation speed within the object. So maybe let's try this time. When we create the dragon object, we can set the image speed to something that is other than what it is. So let's go, we can either just add code to this, right? We can just say add code. Why don't we just do that just for fun, right? Let's add a little code up here, and we'll just directly say, look, I want this dragon's image speed to be, now we're going to have to test this a little bit, but I think 1 is like 100%. So let's just try image speed of like 0.2. Let's just see what happens there. I'm going to test this real quick to see what 0.2 looks like. And it does have the effect that I want it to. Like 0.2 does slow down that animation quite a bit. You can think of 1 as being like 100%. 0.2 is like 20% of the original. So we did switch the image speed or the animation. There's lots more to fix here though. So we want it to like turn left and turn right instead of always facing, to the right. So let's go to our dragon object and let's create a step event inside dragon. So let's say that we want the dragon to kind of maybe create some sort of artificial movement, artificial intelligence. So it's not like we say, once you're created, move left, and it's just going to keep moving in that direction forever. Let's say that kind of randomly moves around the area. Okay, that's one way to do it. We could also create it to be more intelligent, to try to locate where Link is, right, where the main character is, and kind of go towards the main character, like it's going to try to attack it or something like that. For now, let's just randomize some stuff and test a few things out. So what I want to do is let's maybe try a dice roll again. Because we don't want this to happen instantly. We want this to be timed out a little bit. So let's, under control, let's add a dice roll. And let's just try like 1 out of every 200. 1 out of every 200. So that might be something like, I don't know, 6 seconds, 6 or 7 seconds. we can have it maybe change a direction or something like that. So we're going to say, okay, I'm going to put in these blocks. And let's say if we roll the dice and this happens to have be, you know, triggered, let's have the dragon switch directions. And let's have it start moving to the, we'll say that this is moving left, for example. So I'm going to go to move, and I'm going to say start moving to the left. In fact, we could have it move any direction to the left. And put in a speed there. So let's make it, I don't know what we made it before, like 3 or 5 or something like that. I forget. If we send it to move to the left, we can also, and I don't think we've done this yet, but we can switch the sprite completely. No, we did this with Link. Never mind. So let's go here, go to sprites. We're going to change the sprite, and we can change this to dragon left, right? Dragon left. Where are we? Right there. Now it also says what do you want the speed to be as well, and it also gives you the sub image that you can use here. Again, speed we chose as 0.2, right? Is the way that we had it there. We can, you know, add some variation in there if we wanted to. If we wanted to maybe make it kind of varying kind of animation speeds, if you wanted to. I'm gonna go to the GameMaker documentation. So if I don't know how to create a random number, there might be a button for it. There might be some kind of block in there for it. I'm sure there is, but sometimes you just want to know what the actual language, what to type in here. So I'm going to search random and just kind of see what I get. If you search random in the documentation, there's a bunch of random things, random functions that you can get. And there's also just right here, here's a random function right here. It shows you what the syntax is. It gives you an example of it. But basically, if I call random and I have these little parentheses, I can put the maximum number that I want in there. I can also do a random range in here. So if I did a random range, I could have two numbers, one being the low number and the other being the high number. So let's say I want to try this out. I want to use random range. You can put this right into GameMaker. Nothing wrong with trying it. So instead of the speed being, what we had before was like 0.2, I think, you can actually just put, random range. I can call this little function right in here. Instead of just putting in a 0.2 there, we could say, well, maybe vary a little bit when you switch direction from anywhere to 0.2 to 0.4. It's kind of hard to see there, but I'll put a 0 in there. So 0.2 to 0.4. It's kind of subtle, but this will also give you a idea of how to randomize a lot of things. We can randomize the movements and speeds and whatnot with wherever we can place a number. So let's say OK on that. I'm not even sure that will work, but we will find out shortly. So 1 out of every 200 it will decide to move some direction left, right? And then let's add more artificial intelligence here. Let's do another dice roll and say control dice roll. Let's throw 1 out of every 200 again. Start and an end. Let's do the same thing but have it moving to the right. So we are going to change the sprite to the right, dragon right, and the speed, again, you can just put 0.2 or whatever you want. I was just trying to show you a couple more features of GameMaker while we're doing stuff. I'm going to try the same thing and just say random range from 0.2 to 0.4. And it could end up being, it could end up looking like garbage, and then I have to come back here and fix it, but let's give it a try. So there's right. We can also, we have up and down, right? So we can change those as well. So let's go another dice roll here. Let's just keep it all the same. So we'll just say dice roll. 1 out of every 200. Start, finish. If this one is triggered, we will change the sprite to up. So I'll change the sprite to dragon up. Randomize the speed to something. Random range 0.2 to 0.4. Say OK on that, and then let's also do one for down. This might not be the most efficient way to randomize this, but that's okay. So roll the dice one more time. So we'll go 1 out of every 200. Say OK. Start end, and change sprite to down. And this would be dragon down speed random 0.2 to 0.4. Probably should have tested that before I checked 0.2 to 0.4. Well, let's say we have that, and I forgot to put all these moves in as well. So each one of these, like for the second one, I forgot to do, when we switch the sprite to the right, I also want to move to the right. I forgot to put that in this one right here. So I'm going to say move to the right. Now guess what? We can randomize the speed as well. Just, thought of that. So we can kind of change the speed to vary a little bit. We can just say 3 to 5. So if I wanted to, I could say, well, random range of maybe 3 is the slowest, but it goes up to 7. Alright, so it'll change speeds on us a little bit. If I'm going to do this for all of them, I might as well copy and paste this. So I'm going to select it and Control C, and I'm going to say OK. And then we go down to the other one. So dragon up, we're going to move that. Of course, that's going to be up. And I'll just paste in the speed to choose a random speed from 3 to 7. And we'll go down as well. So we'll go down, random speed 3 to 7. And to be complete, if we go back to the very first one, I didn't randomize that at all, but since I'm doing that now, let's go ahead and make that 3 to 7. Okay, now we put in a lot there without testing it, so I'm a little nervous. So let's go ahead and test that. And we get an error. So let's go ahead and see what this error is. It says in Object Dragon event step action 18, wrong number of arguments to function or script. Okay, so this is a good example of like how to read the code and then go, where am I supposed to look for the error that I just made? This is in Dragon. It's in the step event and it's action 18. Okay, so Dragon. So let's go there. Dragon. It's in the step event, action 18. That's right here. And it doesn't like, I can see what I did. I put random instead of putting random range in there. So that was a syntax error. I'm going to put random range there from 0.2 to 0.4. So now we're going to say OK. Try it again and see if we get any errors here. All right, so we're here. So we have this, it's kind of moving. Kind of moving a little too fast. I don't like it to switch so often. So we definitely want to make some adjustments. So this is also going to end. This is going to end part 2 of the video. What I want you to do is I want you to alter alter some of those numbers to make it a little bit less, I guess, how do I describe this? Spastic. The dragons kind of move around a little bit too fast. And then I'll show you what I did as well. So that ends part 2. Put a couple tweaks on there, and we will see you in part 3.